Sorry. All right, I'd like to call to order the Barber Board of Health Committee. Today is Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020, approximately 4:30 p.m. in the Active Adult Center. Members present: Janice Lowe.
Here.
Sandy Baker.
Here.
Joe Rogers. Councilman Jaber. Mary Jo Goss. Tyrone Fletcher. All right, we don't have a quorum, but we don't have anything to really vote on anyway. So I'll just go through this and answer any questions that you may have. I will point out that we have not met since, I believe, March. I did send out an update in July. Due to COVID, we are meeting in the Active Adult Center, which allows for social distancing, and we are streaming this meeting on the internet for the public and the press. So no updates from Summit County Health Department as it relates to the city of Barberton right now. Everything for the last few months has really centered around COVID. Before we get to that, I want to talk about the charter amendment proposal that's will be on the November ballot. I don't have an issue number yet. So if you remember years ago, the city of Barberton merged health departments with the Summit County Health Department. For our charter, we still have a Board of Health. I felt it was important, I came into office, to keep that Board of Health as a middle point or liaison aspect of making recommendations from the city of Barberton to Summit County Health and to City of Barberton Council on health-related issues. So that's what we've done. There's been a proposal to take it out of the charter. So if that does not pass, it'll stay in the charter, and we are bound to meet legally. If it's removed from the charter, that just means we don't have to meet, but we can still meet. So if that happens in November, we can talk about it in October or November. I would prefer to continue with the Board of Health because I still think it's important to weigh in on subject matters that are related to the health and well-being of the community. So the mayor can put together committees. So I would like to continue that. So, but we can talk about that more as we move forward. So. Down to section B, number 2, section B, COVID-19. Just kind of review that. Obviously, we're in a pandemic. There's a state of emergency throughout the state of Ohio, a state of emergency in Summit County, and I declared a state of emergency here in the city of Barberton, and those things continue. What we're talking about is the health of the community, so that includes communication, which we have internally a weekly call with department heads we talk about the number of cases in the state, number of cases in the county, the demographics of those cases, the death rate. We talk about any guidance or guidelines that have come down from the state or the county or recommendations. We talk about our operations and how those mandates affect our operations because we've had to change numerous times. I always talk about those, community events and things like that. So we did have a weekly call with Summit County Executive Ivan Shapiro, including Summit County Health and Summit County Emergency Management. That was changed to a bi-weekly call. So we still have that every other week. There are White House briefings. They were every week, now they're every other week. And then there's other calls that we get and updates. So it's a constant, the only constant is that it's constantly changing all the information. So communication, testing, handing out masks to residents, we've done that. We continue to do that through the CARES Act, creating programs for small businesses, working with our organizations here in town, whether it's the Barberton Community Foundation or the Barberton Community Development Corporation, and working with Summit County. So multiple programs from the CARES Act, the funding. Also working with Summit County on mortgage and rental payment assistance and also utility assistance. So a lot of different programs which we've had to adapt to and kind of manage at one level or another. And we're still gathering all that information of how many businesses we've helped or how many residents we've helped. So we'll have that all put together here soon. A lot of the money that we can use internally for our operations has to be spent by October 15th. There's rumblings, there's always rumblings, right? There's rumblings that there might be more money after that, but there's been zero confirmation. So we're just keeping our hands on this, trying to figure it all out. School's back in session, and I think Barberton Schools have put together a great plan. Again, there is no textbook on this. We're all kind of just trying to figure it out. And whether it's the state, the feds, the county, school systems, cities, whatever, just trying to figure it out because there is no playbook on specifics.
Where is testing being done now?
The only place in Barberton that's being done is Access Point. And that's why I wish Terrell was here. He works with Women's Health, but still he works at Access Point. Most places you have to get a notice from your doctor. You get tested, you go home, you're quarantined. It takes 3 to 5 days to get a test result back at times. And then you may have to quarantine for another 14 days. So, but the issues with the testing is the availability of testing and then also the lab capacity to even run the test. In Summit County, we had the National Guard in, which really helped deliver food and help out the residents. That also gave us access to the lab space. Their lab is in North Carolina, so it's still being occupied with other communities, but it gave us another option. I did turn in Babcock and Wilcox, former Babcock and Wilcox has a research lab off of Van Buren. There's 20 plus wet labs in there. I don't know much about that field, but there's beakers and Bunsen burners and all that good stuff. So I turned that address over to Summit County Health and Summit County Executive and their contact to see if we need lab space, this might work. And they don't have the equipment. It's the lab space and the equipment. So those are the testing, having enough tests and having the capacity to do the testing and the results are two big hindrances that everyone's facing. All the professional athletes seem to be getting tested every week. So if you're losing sleep over that, that's taken care of. But so we're pushing for more testing. They've had some sites, through some of the drug companies, the retail drug companies like Rite Aid. I think off of South Main Street in Coventry, they had a testing site. I stay in contact with Dr. Hughes at Barberton, at SUMA Barberton, about setting up some testing sites in their parking lot, but that hasn't come to fruition yet. Access Point has also contacted us about using our RV for mobile testing. So they're ready to go. They just have to give me the green light and it'll be prepared for them. So sanitized and all that. So a lot of things going on. We've canceled our parades, our concerts, all that. Mum Festival, which should be going on this weekend. We are having the Mum sales, which is going on next door. Seems to be going very well. We wanted to not strip the community of everything because people have to be social, people have to get out and do things. So we were able to modify the sales, and that seems to be going very well. Looking forward, Halloween. We talked to the CDC, we talked to the state. There are strong recommendations about going door to door and getting candy for trick-or-treating. They recommend that you don't do that. They know that they can't stop that because a lot of communities don't run trick-or-treating. It's the neighborhoods that do it. What they do ask is that, and this is almost impossible, they ask that the families and the kids, if you get candy, don't eat it for 24 hours because the virus on the package will die with it. I don't know any kid that can go 24 hours after getting free candy. So I don't know how that's going to work out. So we've got that set up on Saturday, the 31st of October. I believe it's from 5 to 7. We've put out the warnings. We've also put out that this may change. So there is talk at the state level and the county level that moving from a strong recommendation, that might change to something even stronger. We are looking at things like dark at the park, but that has not been confirmed. So if we do dark at the park, it'll be at Lake Anna. It'll be kind of where they'll have a light show, the kids can kind of walk along the trails, and candy can be put in their bag or their box or their container. So, kind of a modified version of trick or treating. So, we may do both, we may do one or the other, we're still trying to figure that out. We only have a few more weeks to do that, so. Kind of moving forward on some of the stormwater mitigation efforts. The 14th Street FEMA project that we applied for several years ago, that is moving forward. So we've met with the residents, we met with FEMA met with the residents, they did an appraisal of the homes. And I don't believe the appraisals have been released to the homeowners yet. Once that's done, they can accept or not accept. Or the third option is they can go get their own appraisal. I don't know if people will accept that third-party appraisal or not, but it's an option. Everything has to be wrapped up on 14th Street, demoed, homes purchased, people moved out, and homes demoed by the end of 2021. So next year will be very busy. There are several homeowners in that area that, for one reason or another, did not take part in that program. One lady, for example, was in long-term care. She's home now. Another one did not qualify. We've purchased a couple homes, $8,000, $12,000. So if we own it and we demo it, then we can do what we want with the land. FEMA acquires it, demos it, they just make it flat land, grow some vegetation there. If we own it, then we can dig down a little bit. So either way, it's gonna be used as a sponge to soak up water. So that's moving very, very, very positively in a pretty quickly manner. It's been 3 years now, but it's moving pretty quickly at this stage. We did apply for the same program for 15th Street in the same area between Shannon Avenue and West Tuscarawas Avenue. So that's moving forward. And then we also applied for the same program on Arthur Avenue, which is in South Barberton off of South Van Buren. There's approximately 4 homes that, the whole property sits, got to be 3 or 4 feet lower than the street. So it's just a natural detention area. And if we can acquire those properties for FEMA, then we can just create a retention pond there, which there's already kind of an older creek that runs back there that drains the south of that area. So I'm pretty excited about those programs, and hopefully they come to fruition here very soon. We did a ditch restoration in South Barberton at Elson Park, former Elson Park, now Webb Park. If you recall, over the last 15 years or so, that the back part of that park was so flooded and saturated, cattails were growing up. The cattails were 15 feet high. It took us a good year to get agreements to go in there and work off of people's property to restore that ditch. When I was a kid, I remember when I was a kid, the ditch was about 5 feet deep and probably about 10 feet wide. When we got in there, we realized it was about 30 feet wide and about 10 feet deep. So today the park is dry. They cut the cattails down and found the old baseball fence back there. And then they put some inlets in there, kind of like a French drain. And this past rain we had a couple weeks ago, it was dry the next day. So it's draining very, very well. We have not only the work access agreements, we're working on an easement so we can keep that ditch cleared out as time goes on. So we did that work in-house, and I just point that out that not everything's contracted out. Rented an excavator, our guys did it, they did a wonderful job, and now we just provided 2 or 3 more acres for kids to play. We expanded the retention pond at Foundation Field. We did not interrupt or affect the soccer/football fields or the walking paths that are there, but we did expand it. And if you haven't seen it, we did a really good job. So that retention pond is twofold. It accepts water from the west side of town, which actually flows underground and pops out off of Gardner Boulevard in Norton, that little creek in people's front yard, that comes, and it takes overflow from Wolf Creek. So what we did with this is at the exit by Wolf Creek, we put a gate system there. so we can close it, kind of like a dam. So we can accept water or not from the dam, and we can kind of release the water that's in the retention pond at our own will. So it gives us some kind of flexibility. And this last rain, it worked like it's supposed to. So we want to look at that. And what's the next step moving forward? So happy about all these things, but there's more that needs to be done. So currently, we're up on East Fifth Street at Lincoln Avenue, putting in storm sewers. This is a large project. 32-inch lines that they're putting in, so it's a large capacity. They're running into a few issues, but I think that we'll be able to get over that pretty quickly. So they shut the entire road down for through traffic for a week, maybe a little longer because of some of the issues that we found underground that were not on maps. But we've got a lot of smart, talented people up there that can work around some of these things. So I think that will really help make a difference with the stormwater. And then as soon as they're done, they're going to go in there and replace some of the curbing along Fifth Street and then repave it. It's getting colder sooner than we anticipated. Usually Mumfest is a very hot event. It's been very cool. It's supposed to be nice this weekend, 80 degrees, but it's been very cool the last few weeks. So they may not be able to pave until next year, which frustrates me to no end because this project was supposed to be done last year.
It's really bad too.
Yeah, so it's horrible.
Are they going to put a drainage ditch down at the bottom of the hill there? I thought I heard you previously that they were going to do that there too.
They're going to run it down Lincoln Avenue, and then it will connect to the ditch that's between North Van Buren and the rail line.
Okay,
So there's already a ditch there.
but I thought there was going to be one down by Maxwell's because when it rains hard, it comes down around that curve.
Yeah, there's already one down there. We've cleaned that out. If
Okay.
you go past Maxwell's by the old OK Potato Chip, we've cleaned that out. We have an easement going back to Malco that we've cleaned out. So, and that's why we're replacing some of the curb, so it can help direct some of the water to where we want it to go. So, we may make some improvements at Scoops. So if you're coming up Fairview and you want to take a right in your car, it's very difficult, let alone 18-wheeler. That's why, you have a utility pole there, you have a rock there, you have a storm inlet. So we're looking at putting grates in front of the drive apron there for stormwater collection, doing away with that storm inlet that's there. We've rebuilt that storm inlet 20 times over the last 5 years, because trucks just drive over because the radius isn't there. So while we're there, we might as well do it right. But that further delays the paving, and I'd rather have it wait and get it paved in the springtime instead of pave it and then start throwing salt and snow blades on it. Nobody's gonna like it, but in the springtime, they'll appreciate it more. It's not ripped up, it's fresh pavement, so. We received some grant money and installed some rain gauges. Representative Gonzalez, Anthony Gonzalez, who's not our congressman, pushed for some of these rain gauges. So did Congressman Ryan, who is our congressman. So we received some funds for rain gauges and precipitation gauges, so now they can monitor it as it comes out of Portage Lakes, along the Tusk, and also Wolf Creek. And it seems kind of silly to a lot of people that, it floods, the tributaries, now you gotta, gauge it, but everyone makes data-driven decisions, and this is kind of the first step. So we're still meeting with the governor's task force on stormwater that he put together. We're still meeting internally, and we're meeting with the county. So 3 different stormwater task force at different levels that we're working through and getting the results. So just a few others. Newton Park over on the north end, which is, kind of sits at the bottom of several different hills, has kind of been turned into a soccer area for youth. But the fields are always wet because it sits at the bottom of several hills that's higher than Newton. So we started looking at the soil composition last year. We did a survey of the land and topography. We really want to dry that field out and make a real soccer complex. So there's some funding. Because of COVID, the feds put $900 million into I'm sorry, I think it's the state. The state put $900 million into a separate fund for park improvements. So we want to apply for up to $500,000, it's all matching dollars, for a soccer complex there. So we feel that we can do some stormwater mitigation, dry the fields out, put in 2 adult-sized regulation soccer fields, and then several mini ones for youth. And really improve the parking, improve the stormwater, which will help the whole neighborhood, and really make a complex out of it. So the application's due in November. You know, they put money into a fund and they go, hey, the money's here for you to come apply. You gotta apply within a month. You know, so you really gotta be on your toes. So we have to go to city council, we have to find matching funds and all that. So I think that we've got all of our ducks in a row, T's crossed, I's dotted, we're getting there. And we'll be able to make application by the due date. So if we do that, we have a designated park just for soccer. We can run tournaments there, youth leagues and all this stuff. We may look at doing underground storage at the foundation fields, not take away one of the soccer fields, but do underground storage, or just take away one of the soccer fields. Either replace somewhere else. I feel better about taking it away for stormwater, but we'll see how this goes. So you may recall the last few years, we've been working on I don't have the exact name of the park over at McCafferty, a park specializing in, for kids or adults with special needs. So we're gonna cut the ribbon this spring on that. And one of our parks employees, Sam Edgar, worked tirelessly over the last 3 years to get the grant funding, work through the construction and all of that. So it's up there. We just haven't cut the ribbon because of COVID. So I know she's frustrated. She put on 3 years of time, effort into this, and she wanted to cut the ribbon and can't yet. So we may do a soft opening on that park, but it's got a special designated area for kids with autism. It's really cool. It's one of its kind in the area. And so we even though it's a neighborhood park, we think it'll get a lot of usage from people outside of Marvin. So very, very cool that we have something like that in town. A few of the other things, I started years ago a Barbara Ford's Neighborhoods First, kind of getting in the neighborhoods and addressing issues. We have a new planning director. His name is Trevor Hunt. He lives in Cleveland. He's worked for the city of Cleveland. He's worked for, most recently, Wayne County. And so him and Justin have been working on identifying the neighborhoods and breaking them down by historic review and research. Is it 18 different neighborhoods? 16 different neighborhoods. We presented this to Planning Commission the other evening, and there's some long-term Barbertonians on Planning Commission. Some of them have never heard of some of these names. One, I believe, was Homewood Development, which is over by Cyberlink, yet Homewood Avenue is over on the east side. And same with Grandview, I think was another one. Grandview's over on the east side, yet there's a Grandview development. So we're still working through that, kind of see what resonates with everybody. We want to do some public outreach. I think you live in a neighborhood that's called this. You know the history of the neighborhood, the assets of the neighborhood. There's pride that you live in this neighborhood and this is our history, and this is what we're known for, and all this good stuff. So we're going to continue with that. They've done a great job with this, and it helps market the city. You know, what kind of neighborhood are you looking for? Well, this is this type or that type, or this one has an HOA, or this one has these assets, schools, parks, things like that. I believe most of the neighborhoods, if not all of them, have a city park in that neighborhood or in close proximity. So more to come on that front. I met with Metro RTA the other day. They're putting together their strategic plan. And they're looking at the future of mobility. They're not in competition with Uber and Lyft, but they're working with them. So, you know, the lady that's the executive director of Metro worked there 25 years ago, left, did some other jobs in Tennessee, came back as the executive director, and she said the bus routes have stayed the same. Nothing's changed in 25 years. Yet everything in society has changed. So, you know, if you need to get from Barberton to Akron for a job, it may take you 2 hours. That's ridiculous. So how do we get that person to their job or to where they need to go instead of going through this whole loop? Let's just take them where they gotta go. So they're putting this plan together. They're looking at bus routes, bus stops, ridership. Not everything's gotta be on the big traditional bus. You know, if you remember, they have the SCAT buses as well. And they're looking at other transportation needs and transportation models. So a lot of cool things that they're going through, and I applaud them for kind of opening their minds and looking at these things, how to best service the residents. Which is important to us because we're entertaining new businesses, we're entertaining manufacturers, and some of those employees may have to ride the bus, or may want to ride the bus. So we want to make sure that when we go entertain a business, that we can say, hey, we've got this strategic plan with Metro that we're working with them on. This may be an ideal time to put a bus stop in front of your place. So, and kind of with that, we're going to be starting a kind of an internal strategic plan for the city. So the last strategic plan we put together in the city that we paid for was 2006. A group out of Columbus did it. They did a great job. And a lot of the things they put in their plan are still relevant today. And Columbus is just kind of, up and coming and doing a lot of things that other communities like Barwin haven't done or can't do. So their plan is still very relevant. But still, it's over 10 years old, which is kind of the life cycle of a strategic plan. And I think it's perfect time to kind of pick and choose a little bit from that plan and look where we are today and look where we hope to be and where we think we're going to be after COVID. They're talking, I'll sit through a webinar and they'll go, for 2 hours, they'll talk, well, you need less office space because people are working from home, right? And they'll go, or you need more office space, but you need individual offices. So not all these cubicles. And then after 2 hours, they'll go, we really don't know what the heck's going to happen. So they're talking the what if, fast food restaurants. Maybe it's all car hop like Swenson's, or it's drive through and carry out, and sitting inside. Retail, maybe everything is shipped to your house. Maybe there's no retail stores. So just kind of looking at all those things. So we have to look at what we have, what's available land-wise, what's available vacant building-wise, and what direction is everyone moving, and how can we capture some of that. So kind of with that, we haven't gone to council yet, but we're looking at, this was brought up Monday, the city owns quite a few vacant lots, whether they're residential or not. We've kind of taken a step back from selling those and we want to put together a more strategic plan. What's the best use for this lot? Is it a new house? Is it splitting it and selling it to the adjoining neighbors? Would it be best used as stormwater mitigation, put a retention pond in, or would it be best used to just hold and see what happens with the rest of the neighborhood and do something that way? So we've kind of taken a step back. We're not going to take a step back for years. We're going to put a plan together. We're working on it now. See a guy kind of looking through the window.
Yeah, he's spraying or something.
Spraying something,
He's
yeah.
spraying something out there. He's got some kind of a tank on the back. Yeah, he's over here. Yeah.
So we'll have more on that front. We want to come out with a plan. We want new construction, we want new homes, we want these things, but we don't have a lot of land, vacant land in town. And we want to be very strategic about moving forward because there's a lot of uncertainty with everything these days, but especially with development. So, so if you hear any rumblings over the next few weeks about that, that's what that's about. So, and we'll be working on our strategic plan. I'm setting up a day in November. We try to meet off-site department heads, and like last year we met at the hospital. They have conference rooms, and just us, and we kind of put a PowerPoint together and kind of talk through some issues and plan for next year and things like that. So there's a lot going on. The problem financially for the city is we lost Babcock's and Wilcox. The company we contract with to collect our income taxes is a City of Cleveland department. So when COVID hit, they started working at 50% capacity. So that means that everything slows up. So I think most recently we got the actuals for June. So we're that far behind. So we've gotten some estimates, but we haven't got the actuals. So to try to plan for a budget for next year based off of 6 months of actuals, it's gonna be very tough. So we've already made arrangements to change from CCA to RETA. Should cost us about the same. Really no change for taxpayers, but they can give us up-to-date or 1-day lag information. And we can really just log on ourselves. We don't have to wait for them to send us something. So the data that they provide, the analytics that they have and capture, it's going to help us to make decisions in a more timely fashion. So, but that won't start till January 1st. So with that, we have a tax levy on the ballot to increase people's property taxes, 3 mills for 3 years. Nobody wants to raise taxes. We've had discussions with council over the last year or so on this, knowing that BW was leaving. Council felt that a tax levy was the best way to go, so we put it on the ballot. We'll see if that passes. And my door's always open to council members. Not everyone takes advantage of that, but I've talked to a few council members and we're kind of working through, if it doesn't pass, what's the next step? If it does pass, how are we going to use that money and what's it going to be used for? So still a lot to come out. We're going to start educating people on reading their tax bill and how much will it actually cost you if it passes. There's a lot of communities, a lot of organizations that are on the ballot this fall for levies. For example, the Barberton Public Library is doing a renewal. They're not part of the county system, but they're on there for a renewal, and that renewal is 40% of their operating budget. But then you have, our schools are not on the ballot, but throughout the county, a lot of different organizations and cities on a presidential ballot. So that kind of makes things a little more wonky, if you will. So we'll see where we are there. So I think a lot of people need to educate on how to read their tax bill. They may think that it's the taxable value on their bill. It's not what they paid for the house. So you may buy a house for $120,000, but it's only taxable at $80,000. So just want to make sure everyone's getting the accurate information. So just a lot going on. Still a lot of uncertainty. Still a lot of changes and challenges that we're coming up against. So, any questions?
Just have a problem with this trick or treat and dark in the park. All it takes is one person handing out stuff they're positive.
Yeah, it's difficult when you see physical altercations on the news about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask.
Mhm.
And now you're gonna have parents going out with kids. We don't like to wear a mask. We have to, you know why? Kids sure as heck don't like to wear a mask. These types of masks, N95s, are a lot different than a Halloween costume mask. So I don't know. Even Halloween masks, kids don't like to wear those for a long period of time. And then again, trying to stop kids from eating candy for 24 hours just isn't gonna help.
That won't happen.
So,
One person handing out candy though, I mean, it could be all over every piece.
and some of the recommendations were just put a bowl of candy out and say, please take one.
That doesn't work.
The first kid that comes up and takes it, it's gonna take the whole bowl.
I've seen it happen.
So, the dark in the park is kind of an alternative. And so they're still trying to work through that. They were talking about a trunk or treat where it's more of a drive-through. And we do those things. Trunk or treat is kind of taking on different meanings and definitions. And they really not recommend trunk or treat, but then we start talking about what does that entail. They were okay with it. But we're getting some messages that there may be some guidance coming out here in the next few weeks on trick or treating and things like that. So, I mean, they can't stop college kids who are going to school for an education from buying into the seriousness of this and having parties and things like that. How do you expect younger kids to? So, it's going to be a tough, and then you have flu season on top of that. So it's going to be very difficult. And more challenged moving forward here in the next few months. So, and especially with Halloween on a Saturday.
That's gonna be scary
Yeah.
if they do that, because you don't know who does and who does not have the codes.
Yeah.
I would not let my child, if I had a child, there's no way I'd let my child go out and do that. No, no, not with what's going on, because even in different areas, you see adults, but you also see kids without masks. And where at one time, you know, they were talking about kids don't get it as much as an adult does, well, that's changed now, they do.
Yeah.
So that'd be scary, I would not let my child go out.
We try to stay on top of the demographics for the state and the county. They don't break it down by city, but they go as far as zip code.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's always changing.
Yeah,
And we were talking a little earlier about how some of these long-term effects affect the cardiac, the brain, the nervous system, lymphatic system, and things are happening after they've already recovered.
Yeah.
Weeks, months later, so it's very scary.
Yeah.
So,
just don't turn your light on Halloween. Leave your porch lights off.
Or buy trick or treat candy for your children and hide it in the house, like
Yeah.
Easter, you know?
Yeah,
yeah, and I've talked to some parents who said they may do that, just their own backyard kind of
Yeah.
Easter egg hunt type of thing. And that's what we tell people, with social media, everyone's got an opinion. We put our schedule out, but when we've talked to people, we say, well, then just don't turn your light on, just don't participate, you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it. If you do something in your house, your garage, your backyard, that's just on you, so I'm not sure what it'll look like. Different times, so.
absolutely.
I haven't met one person that disagrees with me on this, that they can't wait until 2021.
It's been a bad year all the way around.
And you think, just a few months ago, we had a tornado come through town. So it's just a little bit of everything. It's just punch us in the throat here. So. And that's why I think it's so important to have some of the meetings we're going to have here soon, an internal strategic plan. And I want to make sure that we're ready to go and be able to pivot at a moment's notice, depending on what happens. I've got a survey out now to a lot of different businesses in town, from larger corporations to small sole proprietors concerning COVID. So, has it affected your business? Have you laid people off or furloughed them? Have you brought them back? Have you increased business? Have you taken advantage of any federal funding? Would you like information about more? Are you anticipating closing over the next few months? You may have read the IX Center's closing up in Cleveland. I mean, that's a huge draw. It's a big piece of what everyone knows Cleveland as. So a lot of things are changing. Universities are hurting. Schools are changing and having to modify everything. So, this is real, whether you believe it or not, it's real, it's happening, and we've got to be able to change and pivot moving forward. So.
Is Amazon, they're hiring like 1,500 people? Are they gonna bring all those people into the business once they're hired?
Yeah, so, yes.
Good.
So I don't know their protocols once they're hired, but right now, as we speak, they're doing an online application process. We are set to do a lot of hiring events, and then COVID hit. They anticipate hiring more, but for right now, 1,500. But they want to be up and running and operational for Christmas time.
That's why you need your metro routes between here and there.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
we've talked about that, just straight routes during shift changes here and there. Instead of going all the way around, direct routes. So we've been very active working with the county, with the state of Ohio, and with Amazon on ensuring that Barton residents get a shot at jobs. So, the problem is, some people may think it's easy work, but it's not. They, a million packages a day go through. They anticipate will go through there every day. So. All right, any other questions, or what was that address again?
492
492.
Greenhouse.
All right, I'll look into that. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I second it.
Okay, we will adjourn approximately 10 after 5.